Okay, so in my last video, I started to experiment with some VFX by adding in some 3D objects to my scene. You would have seen that if you saw my short film, First Resurrection, which was a Destiny fan film that I made out in the Beerwah Forest. And I've been really keen to try and learn how to do VFX and compositing for a little bit of a while. So the act of like taking 3D objects that I've made in Blender and adding them into my real life footage was really foreign to me. So I wanted to make it a bit of an experiment, bit of a fun sort of project that I wanted to work on. And in my opinion, it honestly turned out great. I loved it. I was so happy with how it turned out. It was a great experience, and I'm really excited to make more things like that, in the future. Then I wanted to try and experiment and challenge myself in a sort of a new realm, still in the VFX sort of way, but I wanted to sort of do it a bit of the opposite. I wanted to put me into a 3D scene. And how I wanted to do that was I wanted to try and experiment with object tracking. And I thought, what would be a really cool experiment? And I ended up deciding to turn my motorbike helmet into a sci-fi helmet. Now, as you all know, I love Star Wars. I love Star Wars so much. And I thought I'd try and do a little bit of a kind of like a Star Wars-y sort of sci-fi futuristic helmet where I, just model a few things, get a helmet, and just see what I can come up with. So with this project, with this experiment, I was going to model a helmet, object track me, and create like a bit of a scene to put me into, and that was going to be the project. Now, one of the biggest things that I took away from this whole experiment was basically I suck at VFX. I honestly suck at visual effects, and that's it. And that's completely okay. It was a great learning experience, and I'm really keen to show you how I went about it. And then even though I realized how badly I suck at VFX, I learned the best lesson at the end. So how I went about this was I took my helmet, I covered it in orange tracking markers, and I filmed it with my Zcam at 6K, 1/8000 shutter speed footage, and at 59.94 frames per second, because I thought that'd be super crispy, really good. I filmed it in front of a green screen, and I tried to, keep the movement nice and steady, not do too much. The scene was essentially going to be me sitting there where I sort of on my helmet, a HUD element comes up where I look around at the HUD. It gives some information, and that was it. 15 seconds, done, right? So I did that, brought it back in. Blender was having a lot of trouble sort of tracking the object, like the tape. So I thought, I'll go out there and do it again. Went out and did it again. This time I used smaller tracking pieces of tape. Did it again, it didn't work. It was like a 50 pixel object solve rate. And then but I knew exactly what I had to do. I got the helmet, I drew little circles, like little black dots all over the helmet and on the orange tape. Went out there, did it, came back in here, tried to object solve it. It was way better because it had actual contrast to latch onto on the helmet. Which was great because then I knew okay, in the future you need finer points of contrast to do it. So did that, brought it in, got the object solve rate, got the scene set up, done. Next was the helmet. So with the helmet, I got a few reference images from Pinterest and brought them in, did a few things, and I was mainly looking for sort of a shape that matched my helmet. So I know obviously a Stormtrooper helmet or a Scout Trooper helmet or even a Clone Trooper helmet would have been too tall and narrow to block out the entirety of my helmet. So I sort of went a little bit freestyle. I found some images on Pinterest, brought them over, and I basically, got to work. I tried to keep everything as functional and practical as I could. So the panels made sense, the mouthpiece made sense, the tubes, like oxygen tubes or any sort of wiring tube made sense. Even the helmet lock on the side, I tried to make sure everything made sense. I didn't want anything to be too wild or too crazy because I didn't want to go too ambitious for this first time project. Anyway, got that done, brought that object into into the object track scene, and it took some fiddling, and I ended up having to On all the tracking markers, I do attach empties to the tracking markers, and then I had to use that as my reference to scale the helmet and get it rotated in the right way. And eventually I got it looking mint. It looked so good. I had the little subtle movements in my own head that the 3D model was following, and it looked great. I was so happy. And then, yeah, so went from there. Next up came the material on the helmet, and I tried to keep it pretty simple, like some black metal, some edge wear, some scratches, scuff marks, throw some reflective pieces and some like silver metal into the screws and bolts, and some panel pieces and a few brass pieces here and there. And then I tried to add some emission points where the, certain points of it would light up and look good. And it was coming along okay. I was having my doubts about it because I was like, it still feels really gamey. Like it feels really like 3D object, like noticeably 3D object, you know what I mean? Did that, and then I got to work on the scene. And I wanted to keep the scene nice and simple because, again, I didn't want to go too ambitious. I found a few pictures on Pinterest, brought it over, started to get to work, and I tried to model it, as best I could. And I knew I didn't want to have a lot of light in this scene. I wanted to have sort of like a main light, a sort of a grungier, yellowy kind of sickly light. And then I wanted to have sort of like a teal light off to the distance. And it wasn't until I started to bring everything into the scene and flesh out the scene with like a futuristic, grungy sort of space sci-fi feel that I was like, this is really not turning out the way that I want it to. This is really turning out really like cheap and just rubbery and just not that great. And the more that I worked on the project, the more I started to curve off with my enthusiasm. Like I started the project with such high hopes, and then I started to curve off and be like, this really isn't turning out that great, hey? And lo and behold, I just pressed on, I persevered. I thought maybe when I render it out and I give it some compositing, it'll be okay. So with this scene, I gave it some volumetrics, I gave it a little bit of light, I gave a few things here, some pieces, and I rendered it out. It took my poor MacBook laptop 4 days to render out these 16 seconds of frames, something like 483 frames, and it took it, like 4 days to do it, which I was like, oh my days, this is taking forever. Because I love cycles. I just love the way light looks in cycles. It looks so good. And I knew if I did it in Eevee, it would have been fine. Probably would have taken an hour. But because I did it in cycles, it just had to render everything through like volumetrics and the right light reflections and this and that. And I wanted the helmet to really reflect that sickly, gross sort of light. And when I got to the end of the 4 days, I gave it some compositing and a little bit of color grading, and it just wasn't looking that great. It just really just kept, I was just like piling shit onto more shit, And I was like, man, this this is pretty disappointing. So I kept going more and more. Then I brought it all into DaVinci Resolve, and I started to try and get it all happening in DaVinci Resolve. And I got it lined up, got it moving, got it happening, masked out my head, and then wouldn't you know it, I didn't cover the entirety of my helmet with the 3D model. So this bottom of my helmet was still sitting out, and you can still see like the 3D tracking markers. But when I tried to track the helmet, it was hard to know where to cut off so I didn't sort of fully track it and like the alpha wouldn't mess up. But when I finally got it tracked, I'd still, every time you'd move your head around, there's still a little bit of my neck that was getting cut out. So you could see behind me into the scene, and it was just like, just pushing shit uphill, eh? I was like, this is just not turning out really good. And it all fell onto this main lesson of me realizing, man, I suck at VFX. I really suck. And I'm like, so shit. Because clearly there were steps in the pipeline that I missed. Clearly there were steps that I was like, if I'd have done this point, or if I'd have put in this, fail safe in order, then this probably wouldn't have happened. If I'd have done this better or this better, then this mightn't have happened. And it was still becoming more and more apparent to me. But herein lies how this is a positive. This is why it is a good thing that I suck at VFX. Firstly, it's because that I can now improve. I can get better. I can always get better. And that's the exciting part because I'm like, man, I'm really crap right now. I look like an absolute noob. And that's fine because I was comparing myself, or I was looking at the footage of people who are years ahead of me, like in terms of experience, like education, like failures, and they've earned the right to be that good, where I haven't earned the right to be that good just yet. I'm still in my infant phase, you know? I'm somewhere between a beginner and an intermediate in Blender and VFX and 3D animation. And that's great because I've got so much more to go. And it'd be bloody ignorant of me to think that I could ever get to a professional within the year that I've, been doing Blender. So that was the first major lesson, which was really good. The second major lesson was I tried to do this entire project within a week, 1 week. There was no room for, the 4 days of rendering it out to then, they didn't turn out quite as good. Let me go back and fix a few things and render it out again. I tried to get it done in 1 week where it just didn't happen because I was like, I don't have the time now to do this. And the experience of it all put me in such a position where I was kind of like, man, I gotta just leave this project alone for a second. I even titled the project, Get This the Fuck Away From Me. And trying to get it all lined up was just a nightmare. Like it was just one thing after another. But yeah, so looking at other people who put out these amazing, phenomenal projects, these pieces that just are crazy, crazy good. They probably spent weeks, months, even a year more on this project to just get it looking pristine and mint and just unreal. And I was a fool and an ignorant fool to think, in a week I can make this great thing. And it was a great humbling experience because then I could be somebody who goes, you know what? I have this idea for a project. I'm going to set aside 2 months because I know that a week isn't enough. 2 months would be enough. You know what I mean? And it's such a good experience. It was so good to see that because I was like, you know what? I needed that. Instead of trying to drive myself or to push myself to get something done within a week, I was like, great, now I know I need to expand on my expectations, plan it better, have time for re-renders, have time for more compositing, have time to shoot the footage better, And it was so good. And that's why, I suck at VFX and I'm glad because now I can get better and I can take these opportunities and run with it. Now I know my next experiment, my next project is going to be way better, 10 times better because I'll put more steps in the pipeline, better pre-production and better preparation, and ultimately a better final result, which is great. I'm so keen for that. Yeah. So I'm going to leave it at that. I just wanted to jump on and just talk about why I suck at VFX. And if you suck at VFX too, then you can get better as well because I'll get better, you'll get better, and it's going to be awesome. So yeah, drop a comment in the comment section if you have a similar story. I'd love to hear it, and I hope this inspires you in some small way. And as always, I hope you're doing great. I always want to check on you, the viewer. I hope your mental health is doing really great, and I hope that you're getting out there, you're looking after yourself, you're getting outside, getting some sunshine, you're touching grass, you're socializing, you've got healthy relationships, and all that jazz. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. If you ever want to reach out, comment something in the comment section, or you can email me, or you can jump on and send me a message at Instagram at mitch.lippy, and I'll always be keen to have a chat. So until next time, have a great week, and I'll talk to you in the next one.